Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, along with the man, the legend himself, Chris King. Chris, we had a long holiday weekend. I hope you and your family had a lovely holiday. And
Indeed. I hope you and yours did as well.
we did. Fortunately, didn't do a whole lot, which is great.
That's always a plus.
That is always a plus. Um, it was a crazy week. We got to see Christmas football, which is not something you normally see. You do see a lot of NBA, and we did on Saturday. Then we saw a slew of games yesterday, many of which decided the fates of some of the playoff teams. And we got a big one tonight, which we'll get around to, with Miami taking on the Saints in what might very well be called an elimination game, the team losing. Their hopes could be dashed in that regard. Of course, this morning I popped out for a little bit and got the first sleet of the of the year, and realized, okay, well, guess what? It is just a week away from January, so I cannot complain too much. So over the weekend, which is a long one, we'll count, everything from Friday to last night into it. What are some of your takeaways from this amazing weekend we just had?
Well, for starters, we can point out that Washington looked like looked absolutely horrible yesterday. But if you factor them in Pittsburgh, two national games that were taking up the big windows were blowouts, and you had to feel bad for the commentators in those games because Kansas City had put Pittsburgh away by halftime, and like we said in the pre-show, Dallas had Washington dead by the time the first quarter was over and just kept piling up the points. Both those games were horrible from that standpoint. You have to wonder if the Steelers now are going to fade out of the playoffs, even though they say that they're still mathematically alive if they win their last two games and Cincinnati loses their last two. Elsewhere, let's talk about the big game up there in Foxborough, where the Bills did not punt, the first time in Bill Belichick's 400-plus games as a head coach where a team didn't punt against him. And Buffalo really was very physical and commanded the line of scrimmage in that game and beat the Patriots. Now they have the inside track on the AFC East title, looking to become the first team other than New England to repeat in the AFC East since the Bills did it in 1990-91.
Right. It was a good weekend for the Bills. They played a tough game and came through it. Baltimore and Cincinnati did a good job of mucking up the North, so that they kept the aforementioned Steelers were kept alive because the Bengals beat Baltimore.
Yeah, and John Harbaugh, it's the first time that the Ravens have lost 4 straight games since he's been their coach.
Right.
And now you have to wonder at 8-7, with all those guys missing, are the Ravens going to fade out of the playoff picture?
Well, the Ravens have to play the Rams this week, and that's
no gimme either.
And Cincinnati's got Kansas City, and that's no gimme. So
that's true. And the Browns and the Steelers play each other.
Right. So
somebody has to win that. Well, no, I shouldn't say that because we've seen the Steelers tie the line.
End up tie again. Yeah, no, that one, they don't have to, but it'd be nice if somebody did. And then, of course, the two teams, everybody in that division plays each other on the last week of the season.
Right. In week 18, you've got, it's the Bengals and the Browns, and the Steelers play Baltimore.
Right.
And let's not overlook, one of the other games yesterday, the Raiders, doing themselves a favor, keeping themselves alive by holding off Denver.
Right.
Meanwhile, we saw the Chargers stink it up. Without Austin Eckler and Mike Williams, they lost to Houston, giving up 41 points to a Texans team that pretty much everyone had given up for dead a long time ago.
Right.
Now, is that a death blow for Los Angeles?
You mean for the Chargers? They're still there. I think they still have a chance to they don't play well on the road at all. I don't understand it, but they just don't. At SoFi, they're good. Away from SoFi, who knows? Look at the Cardinals. The Cardinals have lost 3 straight home games.
That's true.
They haven't won it. they're undefeated on the road, and they haven't won at home.
And they have to go to Dallas next week.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Yeah, that's not, and I'm sorry, I'm still not buying Dallas yet. I mean, I know they beat, Washington, but then again, Washington was incredibly depleted.
True.
And so, fine. You beat Washington, you beat everybody in the East. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, Dallas's best win, if you go back, was probably that win against New England back in week 6. And other than that, you look at the teams that they've beaten. They beat the Chargers, who we just talked about, lost to Houston. They've beaten the Eagles. They beat Carolina, who completely fell apart. They beat the Giants. They beat Minnesota, another team that hasn't been all that great. I mean, granted, Cooper Rush did start for Dallas in that game, but still. But, I mean, you're talking about a team that lost to Denver by 2 touchdowns at home in a game that wasn't even that close because it was 30-0 in the fourth quarter. They lost to the Raiders at home. They lost to the Chiefs on the road. And they lost to Tampa Bay. If you look of the teams that they've beaten, none of the teams that they've beaten are world beaters. Like I said, the Chargers now they're 8-7. The Vikings are 7-8. New England is 9-6, but they just lost 2 in a row. And the Saints are 7-7. We've talked about Washington's issues with COVID and everything else. The Giants are horrible, and they've beaten them twice. So, who has Dallas beaten that has any substance?
Well,
and that's what
I go back to the game. I go back to the game on on Thanksgiving, when they played the Raiders and had that game won, and ended up losing that game. And so, to me,
in that game they had 14 penalties for 166 yards because Anthony Brown kept getting flagged for pass interference.
Right. So you had that. I don't. To me, I don't see anything that in the. Okay, now look, the top 4 teams. Anyway, you've got Green Bay. You've got, I guess the Rams overtook the
Cardinals
in the West. You've got Dallas East, and you got Tampa Bay and the Cardinals, and you got Tampa Bay in the South. They all have things that they all have problems.
Right.
To me, it's. But I do believe that Tampa Bay, and the 2 Western teams are a cut above Dallas. Now, maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. But I do believe those 3 teams are better than the Dallas Cowboys. And I know that there's out there. So if I've offended you, but it is what it is.
And then of course
by the way, thanks guys for
then of course you've got Green Bay as well.
Nice, hellos from the games out there. Oh, 100%. Yeah, Green Bay for sure. On the other side, in the AFC, Kansas City is suddenly pushed things into hyperdrive.
Right, but you have to wonder if they're going to regress.
You can't sleep on the
they
Colts.
started slow. I mean, their defense has been,
and Tennessee.
Their defense has been better, but you have to wonder, can they sustain it?
Yeah.
And that's the big issue for the Chiefs, because we've seen how they've floundered defensively.
Right. They only have to have one bad game in the playoffs, and
that's true.
That'll take you out of it. Well, we've had a lot of fun talking about the NFL, but we got business to take care of, my friend. And it begins with 2 teams that is on the tip of everybody's tongue when you think, college basketball. And that has to be, of course, and
yeah, we've got Brown and Syracuse. It's an extremely light college basketball schedule tonight as they're still coming back from the holidays. I actually like Brown. They're getting double-digit points at the Carrier Dome. Now, we've seen Syracuse already lose 100-85 to Colgate earlier this season. But Brown, they're an Ivy League team. Not
Yeah.
everyone thinks about them, of course, because when you think the Ivies, you think of two schools normally. You think of Harvard or Yale. Some people think about Princeton. And I guess occasionally somebody will throw in Penn, but Harvard and Yale are probably the two big names that anybody thinks of in the Ivy. Browns 8-5, Syracuse 5-5 on the year. Neither team has played in a while. Browns' last game was a 70-65 loss to Vermont on December 10th. Syracuse blew that 10-point lead and lost to Georgetown on December 11th. Brown is 8-3 against the spread this year. Syracuse 4-6. Syracuse, for all their offensive weapons, they are terrible on the defensive end of the floor. They're 335th in scoring defense, giving up 77.9 points a game, 204th in field goal percentage at 42.7%. They're 257th in three-point defense. They're 247th in effective field goal percentage defense. The team shoot 51.5%. They don't force a lot of turnovers, and they give up a ton of offensive rebounds, as opponents grab offensive boards on 33% of their misses this season. Meanwhile, Brown, they hung tough. They lost by 7 in Chapel Hill to North Carolina earlier this year. They lost to Colorado by 2 on a neutral floor. Browns 4-0 in their last 4 on the road against teams with a winning home record. They're 4-0 in their last 4 on the road. And they're 4-1 in their last 5 overall. Meanwhile, Syracuse just 1-4 in their last 5 as a favorite. I know everybody likes Jim Boeheim. He's been around since, what seems like the last 800 years. He looks like the Keith Richards of college basketball.
I don't.
But the fact remains that Syracuse has defensive issues, and Brown is very good on the defensive end. I like for Brown to be able to keep Syracuse in check, especially when you consider that both the Boeheim kids haven't shot the ball all that well in the early going this season. Brown should be able to hang around and cover the line here. Syracuse will probably win the game outright, but it's going to be one of those closer games that everybody that's a fan of Syracuse, including my brother, would like to have at this time of the year.
And
it looks like Jim's freezing up again, folks.
In what decade Jim Boeheim would retire? It seems though all of with Boeheim, he definitely has gotten to a point in his career where you just wonder why he's even still coaching. But he must get something out of it. I'm not sure what, but we will find out.
A bunch of money.
And you would in the old days. Yeah, that's true. In the old days, when Big E started, Boeheim was one of the young guns, and you got it. But now most of those guys have gone. Some of them are even passed away. So we'll see how much longer Jimmy Boeheim stays there. I thought, frankly, when they moved from the Big East over to the ACC, that Boeheim would leave, but he didn't, and Brown losing to Vermont. Vermont is not a bad basketball team. So,
that's true. They're a tough team in the American
Vermont is no embarrassment. That's a pretty good. They are, and they've been that way for many years. They've been one of the class teams here. And you brought up the Ivies. Yeah, Ivies are not great in football, but they have 3 or 4 good basketball teams year in and year out that end up duking it out for the opportunity to get to the tournament. Like you said, you've got Penn, you've got Princeton, you got Harvard. Occasionally Yale gets in there, but the main 3 are Princeton, Harvard, and Princeton, Penn, and Princeton, and then Harvard. There we go. Okay, those are the 3 that usually are there for the Ivies. So the Ivies got some pretty good basketball there. Now whether they can, as you say, I agree. Syracuse will probably win the game straight up, but there's no reason to believe that they can't hang with them.
Well, and the Ivies, it's a cutthroat league when you get right into it too. Because if you think about it, while all these other conferences have everybody in the tournament at the end of the year, only the top 4 teams in the Ivy make the postseason tournament with a chance to go to March Madness.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I mean, that's something that's a big difference
Right.
that
And
you're
they
not used
don't
to
they
seeing.
don't actually even have a tournament. They have just to the with that record, it's the home games. So you work right. So and the other thing is they have about quarter scholarships. So most of the teams that you see there, those are guys who played, for at least 2 years. Sometimes they played 3 years on the team. There's that too. So anyway, all right. So normally we would go to the NHL, but they're frozen. Speaking of freezing, they're frozen out for a
Well,
while.
let's not forget
So
our
nothing to
other
go
exciting
there
college
for.
basketball game, Jim.
Oh, my mistake. My apologies. Back to hardwood.
Right, and it's going to be an
Here
exciting
we go.
matchup between a team that you've never heard of and probably will never hear of again, facing a team from the SEC. We put this on here because it's the only other game on the docket tonight. It's Texas A&M taking on Dallas Christian. Now, take Texas A&M minus 3 billion points in this one because when you look at the numbers, Texas A&M is 9-2. Dallas Christian
There it is.
is supposedly 1-2, but in all their other games, they are marked as exhibition games, and they're 1-11 in those. That includes losses to Tarleton State 84-65 and at Northwestern State 89-67 earlier this month. And there are 2 games against Division I teams. Texas A&M 6-0 at Reed Arena after beating Northwestern State 80-61 Tuesday. Texas A&M 51st in defensive efficiency, 57th in effective field goal percentage defense. They're 13th in turnover percentage by forcing opponents to turn the ball over on 25.5% of their possessions. They're 53rd in three-point defense at 29.5%. Meanwhile, offensively, Texas A&M 40th in three-point shooting at 37.6%. But they struggle at the free throw line, so Buzz Williams' team will probably leave some points on the floor. They shoot just 65.6% at the stripe. The Aggies, 62nd in the nation in scoring defense at 62.1 points per game. Meanwhile, Dallas Christian, in their grand total of 15 games, they've given up at least 85 points in 9 of them. And that includes games against schools that nobody's ever heard of outside of people that went to school there.
Yeah.
Like I said, Texas A&M by $3 billion. We just put it on there for
Christians and the Lions there. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you'll find a line that'll give you $3 billion, but if you do, take it. No, they're coming from the paycheck, so nothing wrong with that. Small school. I don't even know if is it a Division II school?
I'm gonna have to look. They might be a NAIA or something.
I've never even heard of it.
Let's see, Dallas Christian.
Yeah. Well, look, it's not. It's
they're NC,
we just.
they're
I think establishing
the Division II
point doesn't mean that you have to. May not even working it as to where they are.
Yeah, so they're an NCCAA Division II team, the National Christian College Athletic Association.
Okay. They're a Division II team. Okay, well, good for them. And as you say, the best time you're probably here. And I know John, Johnson wants us to. He's up that before IUI plays again. So hang in there, John. We appreciate, and to everyone else who's wished us
yeah, let's see. IUPUI, they're going to play Cleveland State. Oh, that's actually Thursday.
For do us kind of wander over there and smash that button. Is it? Okay.
You seem to be having Wi-Fi issues again.
They'll be back. We'll make sure that I don't know. From my standpoint, as the old saying goes, it looks clear, but maybe.
Yeah, you keep freezing up and lagging and everything else.
As we said, there's no NHL tonight, so let's jump over and see what's going on in the NBA on the hardwood in the association?
Yeah, we've got the Hornets hosting the Rockets at the Spectrum Center tonight in Charlotte. Houston comes in off a three-game skid. They lost 118-106 to Indiana Thursday night on the road. Houston, they had that 7-game win streak. Since then, they returned to earth. They've dropped 7 of their last 9. They're 10-23 on the year, worst in the Western Conference. And they're just 3-16 on the road this year. Meanwhile, Charlotte, despite playing 34 games, they've only played 12 at home so far. Garrison Matthews and DJ Augustine are out for Houston. PJ Washington and Miles Bridges out for the Hornets, all due to the health and safety protocols. This is going to be a high-scoring affair. You're looking at 2 of the 3 worst teams in the league in scoring defense. Houston, 28th in the league, giving up 114 points a game. Charlotte is dead last. They give up 116.8 points a contest. Offensively, though, there's a big difference here. Charlotte's second in the league. They score 114.9 points a game. Houston is 19th at 106.8. The Rockets 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 overall. They're 1-5 in their last 6 after allowing 100 points or more. They're 0-5 in their last 5 as an underdog. Meanwhile, Charlotte's covered the line in each of their last 8 games at home. They're 5-1 in their last 6 when their opponent gives up at least 100 points, and they're 5-1 in their last 6 at home against teams with a losing road record below 400 on the season. These teams met earlier this month, and the final score was 146-143 in overtime. We probably won't get that high today, but I think Charlotte should win this one comfortably at home, given how poorly the Rockets have played on the road this season.
Well, I don't know how many times we've said it, but Houston is one of those wonderfully consistently inconsistent teams in the NBA, and there are more than a few of them, but definitely tough for Houston. And Charlotte, maybe they've been punching above their weight, but they still been playing pretty decent basketball down there in Charlotte. So anyway, all right, let's move over to game 2 on the schedule that we're going to tackle tonight. And
yep, we're going to go out to the newly renamed building formerly known as the Staples Center.
Wait for it.
And you got the Nets and the Clips.
The Crypto Staples Center.
Yeah, we'll just call it the Crypto Dome because I don't remember what
these are this is kind of like the undercard team.
I look for this one to fall under the total.
Brooklyn and the Clippers.
Yeah, I look for this to fall under the total when you get right down to it. The Clippers 5th in the league in scoring defense. They go 104.7. The Nets give up 106.6 points per game. They're 11th in the league. The Nets are 2nd in field goal percentage defense at 42.9%. They're 1st in 3-point defense. The Clippers are 7th in field goal percentage defense and 8th in 3-point defense there. The Clippers, they're playing the second game of a back-to-back after losing 103-100 at home to Denver last night. In the second game of back-to-back situations, that's not a typo. The Clippers are 0-4, and they only average 93.5 points a game while allowing 105.3 points a game. The Clippers won't have Paul George. He's out with a torn UCL in his elbow. Normally that would require Tommy John surgery if he was a baseball pitcher. However, since he's just a basketball player, he's expected to miss about a month. Reggie Jackson's also out in the health and safety protocols, as are Marcus Morris and Jay Scrubb. Isaiah Hartenstein is out with an ankle injury. Meanwhile, the Nets don't have LaMarcus Aldridge, David Duke Jr., Kevin Durant, Kessler Edwards, Joe Harris, Kyrie Irving, Day'Ron Sharpe, and Cam Thomas, all of the health and safety protocols. Also not in the mix, Keith Van Horn, Kerry Kittles, or Bernard King. The under 6-2 and the Nets' last 8 when their opponent scores at least 100 points. It's 14-5 in their last 19 after an ATS win. Meanwhile, the Clippers have seen the under go 4-0 in their last 4 overall and 7-0 in their last 7 after allowing 100 points or more in their last game. You can't expect a ton of points in this game, especially with the Clippers playing the second game of a back-to-back and being shorthanded. Look for it to fall under. It was 214 earlier. I may have gone down to 213 by now. But either way, don't expect a ton of offense here.
it's one of those games where you're sitting there and going, well, we'll probably end up, when you get the Clippers and Brooklyn together, it's kind of like the number two teams in each city, right? Because you've got the Lakers are the star team in Los Angeles, but then there's the Clippers. Situation where you've got the Knicks is the star team in New York, but then there's the Brooklyn Nets. So at the end of the day, these second city guys are now the two premier teams in their own, in their cities. The Clippers are better than the Lakers, and Brooklyn has been better than the Knicks for quite a while now. So
right
there you go from there. Now, talking about people who have problems, I think this qualify as our MASH unit game of the evening. So with that in mind, tell us about who is playing and who isn't playing. We can't have the Lakeland Magic drive up to Atlanta for this game. So,
right. I like the Bulls -5.5 over the Hawks. The Bulls, they're playing a second game back-to-back. They beat Indiana 113-105 yesterday. They've won 3 straight and 7 of 9. Meanwhile, the Hawks, they've dropped 7 of 10. They fell 101-87 on the road to the Knicks on Saturday. The Bulls are expected not to have Lonzo Ball, Tony Bradley, and Alfonso McKinney due to the health and safety protocols. Patrick Williams, of course, injured his wrist earlier this season. He'll be out until April. Alex Caruso expected to miss 7 to 10 days with a mid-foot sprain. Derek Jones Jr. also out with a hamstring injury. Meanwhile, the Hawks are expected to be minus Trae Young, John Collins, Lou Williams, Onyeka Okongwu, Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, Jalen Johnson, Wes Iwundu, Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari, and Sharif Cooper all due to the health and safety protocols. Solomon Hill out probably for the year with a torn hamstring. DeAndre Hunter out with a wrist injury. Also not suiting up for the Hawks, Lou Hudson, Dominique Wilkins, Kevin Willis, and Tree Rollins. They tried to exhume Pistol Pete on a 10-day contract. It didn't go through. When you get down to it, the Bulls 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 on Monday. 6-1 in their last 7 after scoring at least 100 points. They're 5-1 in their last 6 after a straight-up win. The Hawks are 0-8 against the spread in their last 8 at home. They are 0-7 in their last 7 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. The Bulls, they're 10 games above 500 for the first time since 2016. With Atlanta missing so many pieces that you can't have any faith in the Hawks right now. Look for the Bulls, even playing the second game of back-to-back, to cover the line and pick up the road victory in this one, as the Hawks are just a team in complete disarray thanks to COVID running rampant through their lineup.
It's definitely been an equal opportunity problem for the entire Clip. We're not going to pick on just everybody out. So it's been crazy. Speaking of crazy, and you wouldn't have thought a few weeks ago that a Miami New Orleans football game would have meant much, but actually it does. It's kind of like the survivor pool of reality here, because they're both 7-7. Whoever comes out of this at 8-7 is still in the race. Who comes out of this at 7, they may not be.
That's true.
So, without any further ado, to the Caesar Dome in New Orleans, Louisiana, with I just
Yep, it looks like Jim froze, so we'll cover the game here for you guys. Obviously, the Dolphins and the Saints at the Caesar Superdome in New Orleans. Both teams coming in 7-7. Entering this week, Miami's won 6 straight after a 7-game losing skid, while the Saints have won 2 in a row after their 5-game slide. For those of you who haven't heard, the Saints will turn to Ian Book, the rookie quarterback from Notre Dame, under center. In this one, Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill both in the health and safety protocols. Saints also won't have tight end Adam Troutman, Starting tackle Ryan Ramczyk, linebackers Quan Alexander, Demario Davis, and Caden Ellis. Also safety Malcolm Jenkins and defensive end Carl Granderson. Tarana Armstead, Traquan Smith, and Marcus Davenport are all questionable for this one. The Saints are just 1-4 on the road at home this season. Miami, they're 4-0 in their last 4 after allowing less than 150 yards passing in their previous contest. They're 5-1-1 in their last 7 overall, and they're 5-1 in their last 6 after scoring at least 30 points in their last game. Meanwhile, New Orleans 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 after an ATS win. They're 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 on Monday. They're 1-4 in their last 5 home games. And you know that the Saints didn't have a ton of faith in their quarterback room when they tried to get Drew Brees to come out of retirement. They also tried to contact Phillip Rivers. We tried to confirm that they wanted to get Archie Manning out of retirement. That did not pan out. They couldn't get Jake Delhomme, Bobby Hebert, or John Fourcade. Steve Walsh was not contacted. Let's face it, the Saints, they've struggled all season long after Jameis Winston went down at quarterback. Simeon hasn't been great. Taysom Hill isn't great. Book hasn't taken a snap all season. And you have to think that that's going to impact the Saints offense, especially with so many guys missing on both sides of the ball. Look for the Dolphins to cover the 3 points here and get the win, as much as I hate to say it because I'm not a Dolphins fan by any stretch of the imagination. But it's a battle of attrition, and the Dolphins are a healthier team at this stage of the game compared to New Orleans. I'm not sure if Jim's with us or not. I see his picture.
It's been crazy compared to New Orleans. Yeah. Hang on a second, guys. I'll be right back. Can you hear me, Chris?
I can hear you.
All right, good. So we're just having a slight technical issue here. So hopefully we'll get this resolved. All right, so we have the Dolphins and the Saints tonight. We've already been through the vast college basketball docket that we have today. That the NHL is as frozen as my screen from time to time. And then we did the association and now Monday Night Football. So you know what that means. It means 2 for the money. So
yeah, it's going to be an interesting one since there's not a whole lot going on
today.
But I like if we're going to play the actual side in that Nets Clippers game. I like the Nets -4. Like we said, the Clippers they struggle on the second game of back-to-backs, and they are missing, their biggest offensive weapon in George. We already know Kawhi Leonard. He hasn't played all year.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows when he'll be back? Meanwhile, Harden can probably carry whatever carcasses they can put on the floor for Steve Nash and the Nets. Look for Brooklyn to win there. Like we just said, Miami over the Saints. I get that everybody likes the fact that, quarterbacks making their first start in prime time are 11-3 straight up and against the spread in their last 14 matchups, including Cooper Rush's win over Minnesota earlier this year for Dallas. But Book hasn't taken a snap all year. That doesn't bode well against a Miami team that suddenly has momentum and thinks that they're a relatively decent team, as opposed to the 1-7 doormat they were in the first half of the year. With so many pieces missing for the Saints, you can't put any faith in them. They couldn't move the ball through the air very successfully when they had Winston under center, and it's gone downhill since. Now with Book throwing to Marquez Callaway and Lil Jordan Humphrey, the only way the Saints are going to stay in this game is if you see a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara and he puts up big numbers. Inevitably, the Dolphins are healthier. They've got more weapons. You have to think they can pull out the road win there. The Bulls -5.5 over the Hawks. Like we said, the Hawks minus pretty much everybody when you get right down to it. I mean, they do have Bogdanovich and Clint Capella, but that's about it. And, I like the Suns -8 over Memphis. Memphis playing the second game of back-to-back. They had to beat Sacramento on the road yesterday. Phoenix is going to be motivated to bounce back after they played poorly on Christmas Day in that loss to Golden State. You have to wonder, especially for the Grizzlies with Dylan Brooks and the COVID protocols, how much more pressure that puts on John Morant. I like the Suns. They have a little more depth right now to prevail at home in that contest. As Memphis, fatigue catches up with them after playing that game against the Kings last night.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, tell you what. Go ahead and hot change over to the 4. We're going 2 for the month. It's now 4 for the Showtime. So you can just pop over, and there we are.
Yep, and I like Brown, like I said, plus 10 over Syracuse. Like I said, Syracuse should win this game, but we also said Syracuse should have beaten Colgate, and they lost by 15. So I'll take the points with the Bears there. Like I said, Charlotte -6.5 over Houston. The Rockets 3-16 on the road. Charlotte's 8-4 at home, surprisingly. So they'll have a home-heavy schedule the rest of the way. 20 out of their last 48 games in the regular season will be on their home floor. I don't expect a ton of points in this game between the Dolphins and the Saints. Let's be honest. Miami, despite winning games, they don't score a ton of points most of the time. I know they scored 31 last week, but that was against the Jets. The Saints don't score a ton, and they're down to a 4th-string QB with no receivers. Both defenses have played well. This could be another game like we saw last week with the Bears and the Vikings, where it was 17-9. This one could be 17-10 or 17-13. But I'm not expecting either team to blow up. It's not going to be like we saw yesterday with Washington and Dallas, or with Cincinnati and Baltimore. We're not going to see any offensive fireworks like that. So look for that one to fall under 38. And then, like I said, I look for the Nets and Clippers to fall under 214 just because there's no offensive weapons for the Clippers to speak of. And the Nets are missing, a ton of stars as well. So don't expect a ton of points there.
So there you go, folks. Now, we're going to move over to the big board. And as we've said before, you don't have to take them all, but there's a lot of good value in here. And, well, go ahead, Chris, pop over to the next group and Shot in the Dark. And here you go.
Yep. I threw in some individual player props on this one because there's absolutely nothing to talk about otherwise, with it being such a light slate. I like the Celtics -6 over Minnesota. I know Jason Tatum went into the protocols today for Boston. Minnesota still won't have Karl Anthony Towns or D'Angelo Russell or Anthony Edwards. So I like the Celtics to find a way to claw that one out. They gave Milwaukee quite a run Saturday before falling. Look for the Celtics there. I like Utah. I know Donovan Mitchell didn't make the trip for this one. He's out for a couple games with a low back strain. I know a lot of people have been jumping on the Spurs, but San Antonio won't have DeJounte Murray. He's in the protocols as well. That's a big blow for them. He's their leading scorer and their best option on the offensive end. Look for the Jazz to find a way to claw that one out. In the weird battle of the day, Portland and Dallas, it's a pick-em at the Moda Center. I like Portland a little bit better because Dallas has not played all that well on the road. They still won't have Luka Doncic or Tim Hardaway Jr. or Maxi Kleba. Willie Cauley-Stein hasn't played in a month, not that he's a big factor anyway. Damian Lillard, I believe, is a game-time decision. CJ McCollum is on the way back. It'd be nice if he would play here, but that's not going to be the case. Like I said, I like Houston Charlotte to go over 235. The first meeting had 289 points. These are the two of the three worst scoring defenses in the league. I expect a lot of fireworks offensively in that one. Same reason, I like the Bulls and Hawks to stay under the total, under 210. When you get right down to it, we said Atlanta's missing seemingly their entire rotation. The Bulls coming off second game of back-to-back. So in that case, you're not looking for offensive fireworks by any stretch of the imagination. For player props, Alvin Kamara, I look to get over 22.5 receiving yards because who else is Ian Book going to throw to in this game? Kamara averages better than, almost 30 yards per game receiving anyway. He's their best option throwing the ball, and I expect him to get a heavy dose. I also look for Kamara to score a touchdown in this game. He might score the only points New Orleans has in the game, but at 110, I'll take that as a safe option. I look for Tua Tagovailoa to go for over 1.5 passing scores. He's thrown for at least 2 scores in 3 of his last 4 games entering this one. In the Mavs Portland game, I look for Porzingis to go over 23.5 points. He scored 27 the other night against Utah. And with Doncic and Hardaway and all those guys missing, he's their number 1, number 2, and probably number 3 option on the offensive end of the floor. And finally, Al Horford. I like to go over 7.5 boards for the Celtics against Minnesota. He averages 7.8 boards a game this season. Meanwhile, Minnesota gives up the 27th most rebounds in the league. Or I should say the 4th most. They're 27th in rebounding themselves. You have to think Horford, with so many pieces missing on both sides, can collect at least 8 boards in that one to come up over the number there. As for the top pick of the day, God, it's slim pickings. I'd probably lean either the Nets over the Clippers -4, or the Hornets over the Rockets. I like Brown, but I'm not sure that how that game's going to pan out, because you never know with the way Boeheim's team plays. They can be hot one day and frigid the next. And Brown, I know they won't be intimidated going on the road. I'm just uncertain how they're going to react in this environment. So if I was to pick one that I was leaning towards, it would be the Nets or -4, or the Hornets -6.5. I just have no faith in the Rockets being 3-16 on the road. And I'm sure most people don't.
It's funny with regard to Brown. A lot of those kids who play for Brown probably grew up fans of Syracuse. And
that's true.
So it'll be interesting to see that, when you're talking about not intimidated, they probably, have been to the Carrier numerous times, and it's kind of like a dream come true situations where you show up and you're playing on a court that you've seen on television. Maybe you've been there and watched a game or two, but the kids from Brown will not. I agree, they're not going to be intimidated by Syracuse. We're in the middle of a break, so I doubt seriously there's going to be, the dome's not going to be full or rocking. So it's not going to be a very intimidating situation either. So there's
and
that.
For those of you who are wondering, with the quick lane bowl today, so that was the lone bowl game we didn't get to cover because it kicked off at 11 o'clock this morning, because some brilliant guy came up with the idea that that's when a game should start for a bowl game. Western Michigan 45, Nevada 24 with 5:05 to go. Western Michigan seems like a safe bet to cover the 6.5 point line. The big factor there was Carson Strong opting out for Nevada. So they had to go to their backup quarterback, Nate Cox, who, like I told Jim in the pregame show, the plus thing was he was 6'9". The negative is he's 12 of 22 for 121 yards. I actually wrote that game for Winners and Whiners, and I took Western Michigan just because of the fact that I was concerned about Nevada not having Strong under center. And it's going to be weird coming up this week because we've already had a couple bowl games get canceled, and that's too bad. We lost the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. I know everybody was looking forward to that one.
Right.
And we
lost the Hawaii Bowl.
Yep, and we lost. So now SMU gets screwed out of a bowl game for the second year in a row, because they were supposed to play Virginia. Boston College. I can't remember who is Boston College going to play in a bowl game. Do you remember, Jim?
Not off the top of my head, no.
And then Miami has pulled out of the Sun Bowl. Washington State's trying to find somebody that they can stick in there. And then, as you know, in the game that we'll talk about, is that who it was?
I thought Baylor was playing in the Sun Bowl. Yeah.
No, Baylor's playing in the. No, Baylor's got Old Miss in the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, right. No, so you're right.
It was Washington State, Miami in the Sun Bowl, but Miami pulled out.
Miami.
And of course, in a game we'll talk about Friday, the Gator Bowl. Rutgers is going to slate in now instead of Pitt. Or no, not Pitt. I'm sorry. instead of who was Wake Forest going to play originally?
Yeah, I know. I know. Originally, they were going to play in that bowl. Who was it going to be?
Texas A&M. That's right. It was going to be Jimbo.
Texas A&M. Right.
Yeah. So now they're going to play Rutgers in what should be a one-sided matchup because Rutgers is horrible.
Yeah.
They're only in the bowl game
if you want to see a lot of
5-7.
points, if you want to see a lot of points, that's going over to the stadium over in Jackson. Again, I don't know what they call it anymore. It used to be the Gator Bowl, made it very simple, but now it's
TIAA Bank Field.
Okay, TIAA Bank. All right, fine. TIAA Bank Field, definitely, or Urban Meyer's last job field. So anyway, that's
looking forward. Tomorrow we've got. Let's see. Do we have any bowl games tomorrow? We have. Oh yes, we've got our friend Jack Healy's bowl, the Birmingham Bowl, Houston and Auburn, where we still want to know why Houston got stuck going to Birmingham to face Alabama. We'll also have that game will kick off before we're on the air, but we'll have the First Responder Bowl with Air Force and Louisville that kicks off at 3:15. Mississippi State and Texas Tech face off in what should be called the Mike Leach Bowl, but it's going to be the Liberty Bowl instead. Mike Leach, of course, he coached at Texas Tech. He's now at Mississippi State. There's still a lot of animosity between Leach and the Red Raiders. Then in everybody's favorite, the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl, it'll be UCLA and NC State. That kicks off at 8 o'clock from Petco Park in San Diego. And in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, because who comes up with these names, West Virginia is slated to take on Minnesota at 10:15 at Chase Field in Phoenix. We'll talk about all those games tomorrow because, hey, at least there'll be games on TV.
Yeah, and look at it this way. You're looking at bowl games, 2 bowl games there that are playing in baseball stadiums. So you've got the Holiday Bowl is being played at Petco Field, the home of the Padres. And then over at Chase, which looks like an airport hangar, is going to host the the game, the late game, the 10-15 game that you're talking about.
And then Wednesday, you've got the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium where Maryland plays Virginia Tech.
Yeah, that's
so you'll have another baseball stadium game.
Well, and finally, from that standpoint, those were 2 ACC teams that used to play each other all the time. So so you got 2 teams that are playing, and I think if I'm not mistaken, both teams will be getting ready to. Both teams are going to be there without their head coaches because they fired both of the head coaches are gone. Loxley at Maryland and they got rid of the guy at Virginia Tech. So I don't know. We'll worry about that tomorrow. I will do more research and figure out what's going on. But these are bowls that are they're purely for entertainment and betting purposes. So there you go. But plenty to watch out for. Coming up at 3 o'clock, speaking of things to watch out for, Scott and Scott will be with us, and they will be back to the window. I'm sure they're going to have all kinds of crazy stuff from yesterday. And I'm kind of anxious to find out what Bet the Farm was yesterday. What do you think Bet the Farm was?
I don't know. I think it was funny that Steen said on Twitter that next week the top 2 teams in the AFC will meet when the Chiefs play the Bengals next week. And he didn't respond when I pointed out that, if he's saying that because the Chiefs lost to the other 2 division leaders in the AFC already this season because Kansas City lost to Buffalo and Tennessee. So he didn't respond after that. So somebody might want to ask him about that.
Yeah, that's
we know
might
Steen's
have one team being good.
Yeah, we know Steen's a Chiefs fan, but I mean, he's got to face reality.
Eventually, we all have to face. All right, guys. Tell you what. Any final thoughts, Chris, before we get on?
It might be a good
Lazy,
day
hazy,
to take a
crazy
nap as
Monday.
opposed to watching Monday Night Football because that game is going to be probably extremely boring. It won't be any worse than last Monday's game with the Vikings, but
True.
it won't be all that entertaining either. Other than that,
Heavily,
other than that, let's
heavily, yeah.
we'll look
I
forward to
was just
Week
going to say
17
heavily.
later this week.
Right. I was just going to say, if instead of watching the Dolphins and the Saints, highly recommend Look Up, which is on Netflix. It's a very interesting, very thought-provoking movie. It's we give it 3 stars. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming by. We greatly appreciate it. Remember, we got Scott and Scott coming up at 3:00 right here on your Winners and Whiners Sports Betting Network. And that's on King. I'm King. We tomorrow at all right. Okay.
I don't think it actually exists.